about those of you who have lost their homes or who are desperately trying to save their homes, whether it's from being evicted from it or from it being repossessed? There are those of you who have families who depend upon you to see that they continue to have a roof over their heads. And this pandemic has made eviction and repossession, which is anybody's worst nightmare, especially when one has a family, to become a living reality, from security to insecurity. The pressure of those of you who are facing such a tough and challenging reality, again, I can only imagine the pressure, the concern, the fear, the uncertainty of resolve one must be feeling. Your family's security being tossed up into the air, not knowing which direction the wind, meaning this global pandemic, is going to blow. These are truly unsettling times, and believe it or not, it's only going to get worse. That much I promise you. So you may be thinking, Shahid, why are you being so pessimistic and grim? Where is the optimistic approach and hope? Where? My reply will simply be, the signs are there. The writing is all on the wall for everyone to see. You see, the whole world, even as I'm speaking to you right now, is transitioning into a new reality which is soon to become yours. All you just simply need to do is open both your eyes and you will see what you need to see. And should you have any trouble seeing, then my advice would be to you is remove the cataract from your eyes, from both of them. The cataract, of course, is referring to any media sources that hides the truth, or soft pedals the truth, or pushes out or promotes a false narrative that contradicts the truth. You will know the truth when you see it and hear it. Why? Because truth by nature stands out clear from falsehood. Full stop. And if you can't or have trouble detecting it and your faculties fail you, believe me, your heart won't. People know when something seems fishy. They may not know what it is precisely. They can't put their finger on it, but they can feel something is quite off. It's not quite right, unless you're in a coma-like state or in a heavy state of denial. It's not that I'm being pessimistic or grim. It's just that I'm simply stating facts, that the world is taking a turn for the worse. That doesn't have to be a bad thing. Perspective is absolutely imperative here. I believe even good things can come out of bad situation. For example, this global threat has exposed to me those who are sincere from those who claim to be sincere. But in actuality, those who are claiming to be sincere, they have hidden incentives that are not for the greater good of the international community. So by knowing this and doing the simple maths of, let's say, pandemic add prolonged lockdowns add political incentives add crazy philanthropists with a fixation with syringes add monetary gains equals messed up world. And by calculating that result, doesn't make me pessimistic or grim. I've just solved a simple equation, and a very obvious one at that. And it will come into fruition. You will see. Just be patient. As for those of you who have suffered and who are continuing to suffer due to this global disturbance, because that's what it is. That's all it is. A global nuisance that has real life consequences, and hundreds of millions of people can testify to that simple fact. There are people who have suffered and still are beyond measure. My sincere concern is for you, as the reports and stats that I've been seeing has been very concerning, to say the least. It's been very frightening. So that being said, all I request for just a second is for us to put aside our color, religion, culture, status, academics, credentials, nationalities, and just connect with me as a human being. Just for a second. Forget my color and the fact that I'm Muslim. Just for a moment. And just see me as your brother in humanity, regardless who you are. Well, this brother of yours in humanity wants to say to those of you who have suffered and who are still suffering from the consequences of this pandemic and are allowing this pandemic to monopolize your life. I know that some of you have lost a lot. I'm not disputing that. And the last thing that I want to be doing is sitting here in front of my camera, coming across as if I'm kind of disparaging your loss or struggles. That's not the approach or tone I'm trying to set here. Rather, I want to give you some sincere advice that will help you to coach you through these very challenging times that the world is currently experiencing. And my aim is to highlight to you that this global pandemic is out of your control. And this being the case, I feel there has to be some kind of self-focused protocols that needs to be in place in order to keep us from panicking, stressing out, or worst case scenario, falling into depression, which can lead you down, the road of drugs and alcohol abuse, and you don't want to go there. You don't want to go there. That is a very dark place with very few lights, with very few returns. You don't want to even go there as a tourist, especially if you have a family. So bearing that in mind, here is my sincere advice to you. Firstly, small disclaimer. Please note well, I am not a professional like a doctor, psychologist, or psychiatrist. I have absolutely no accolades to sing about. So please do not replace professional help with what I am saying to you right now. I am a simple layman who only wishes to share some of his insights, which was gained through personal experiences, whether it be events relating to myself or people who are dear to me. I've learned a few things about life and people and facing problems. And I have personally learned that there are certain steps that can help people face their problems and also coach them through it. Now, these steps are not to be treated as the gold standard for every problem, as each problem is to be measured on its own merits and then tackled accordingly. However, I have found that these steps can be applied in most situations. So that being said, the first step is acknowledgement, meaning the first thing is to ask yourself, do I have the power to change this problem? Is this problem out of my control? If the answer is no, then take the necessary natural steps in combating the problem at hand. However, if the problem is out of your control, like this here pandemic, then one would need to initiate what we would call self-recognition or self-reflection. Now, this would mean you would have to take the time and effort with true self-reflection to try and understand how not being in control of a particular event like this global pandemic, how it makes you feel. However, I must say, to discover your true self and expose your real feelings, there is a condition you must meet first, and that is you have to be truthful with yourself in order to master and prepare your mind to face a situation that you have now admitted by acknowledging that something like this pandemic is out of your control, completely out of your hands. This condition is a must. Sincerity is always a must. Now, if you should find it difficult to analyze and pinpoint those hard to understand, not so clear thoughts and feelings, then all you simply do is jot them down on your computer or phone, or you can even pen it down in a diary, and if you want, every day. That way you can always keep a track on your emotions or insecurities and always have a bird's eye view of what is troubling you. It's like having an x-ray. You know, having an x-ray done on you, it scans your body and highlights the problems so that you can see what's troubling your body, right? Well, that's the same effects penning down your thoughts does. It's like having an x-ray done on your mind. It helps you to locate and highlight the problems that are causing you or maybe physical or mental and emotional distress. So seeing your feelings written down before you can seriously help you on your journey to self-acknowledgement. Also, write down your strengths and weaknesses. Small note though. This is not to see how pathetic and rubbish you are as a human being and dealing with problems. No, this is not what it's about. So don't seize this moment to feel sorry for yourself should your weaknesses outnumber your strengths. Don't do that, please. Just don't do that. Your strengths can't always dominate your weaknesses in every aspect of your life. The reverse has to happen sometime. You know, this is the balance of life. It's normal, and more importantly, it's okay. And for God's sake, just don't compare yourself with anyone else's situations. It's not about them, it's about you. Plus, that's not being fair to yourself, as everyone's situation is different and unique to them. and contains different variables. So let's not be that person, please. This is just a simple overview that will allow you to see if your strengths qualify you to deal with this problem by yourself, or would it be better for you to seek out help, maybe from a close family member or a friend. As we all know, some people are not able to identify within themselves that they need help, or maybe they're too shy to ask for help, or too proud, or are in just straight up denial. But whoever you appoint to be your advisor or emotional punching bag, they have to be someone trustworthy and patient, and someone you most definitely feel comfortable with. That is a must. And should you have no one in your life who qualifies for that position, then you should seek professional help. Don't be proud. And after you have reflected and acknowledged with acceptance of your position in all this craziness, meaning pandemic, and have devised some kind of hit list that will help you to stay focused on your goals by working towards either rebuilding what you have lost from this pandemic, or strengthening and creating some kind of safeguard around what you fear to lose due to this pandemic. You need to then marry that with some kind of stress reduction management plan, which purpose should be which is to serve as an outlet of all the pent-up stress that you will acquire through the pressures of life, which is unavoidable. So therefore you need a process, a system, a mechanism of release. Just like the stovetop whistling kettle, what happens to it once it reaches its capacity to hold in the pressure? It has a mechanism of release, right? Which is to whistle and blow out steam. This is once it's reached its pressure, it starts to whistle loudly, and you see it go, it starts to blow out all this steam, even though it doesn't sound like that, but you know what I mean. Well, we need that same mechanism as humans. We need that same outlet. If we don't release that pressure and choose to keep it in, it can become problematic and pose a serious threat for our mental, physical, and spiritual health. And we don't want that. So your stress reduction management plan should include a practice that will help to promote, stimulate, to encourage the regulation of those natural antidepressant hormones like your endorphins, your dopamines, your serotonins and oxytocins, to flourish throughout your body and to act as some kind of vanguard that purges your body of those harmful chemicals that are produced and released when one is stressed, such as your cortisol and your noradrenaline, that has the capacity to cause mental and physical harm if left unchecked for a long period of time. However, the good news is these hormones can be subdued and arrested by implementing simple stress management strategies that will allow for these so-called happy hormones, such as your endorphins, dopamines, your serotonins and oxytocins, to triumph over these troublemaking hormones. And all it is to get this simple victory is by making small lifestyle tweaks such as taking up a fitness or a yoga routine, implementing a healthy diet by reducing or giving up altogether inflammatory foods if you can. That would be better for you. Being around people that keeps you in a positive and upbeat mood, taking up pastime hobbies that bring about for you a sense of peace and joy within your internal environment, and allows you to escape from all the negativity that we are currently experiencing for a while, so that your mind, body and soul can have a chance to breathe and heal. Whatever it is that will stimulate and regulate your happy hormones, just do it. Just do it. Providing it doesn't include oppressing yourself or others, and it's absolutely legal. As for me, I'm a Muslim, and I gather my strength through the remembrance of my Creator, Allah. Allah says in the Quran, which is the book that the Muslims follow, in chapter 13, verse 28, he says, and I'm going to say this in Arabic first, and then I will give you the English translation to it. So he says, "Alladhina amanu wa tatma'innu qulubuhum bi dhikrillah." And he says, those who believe and whose hearts find satisfaction in the remembrance of God. Allah bi dhikrillah tatma'innul qulub. Surely in the remembrance of God do hearts find satisfaction, contentment. And this is what this verse means. And that's what I honestly feel when I, draw close to Him. You see, He's my source of strength, my light in the dark, my hope and Savior. You see, when I feel anxious, I turn to Him and I complain of my concerns, fears and shortcomings. And not once has He forsaken me or let me down. So I feel good, and I'm good. I feel secure and safe. And this is why I truly believe the relationship between creation and Creator plays a significant role within our lives, because in the Quran it says, or God says in chapter 20 verse 124, He says, وَمَنْ أَعْرَضَ عَنْ ذِكْرِي, and whoever turns away from my remembrance, فَإِنَّ لَهُ مَعِيشَةً ضَنْكًا. And what that means is that whoever turns away from the remembrance of God, indeed, verily, surely, for that person, for him, he will have a miserable life, a depressed life, a life that feels tight and suffocating, a life that just feels like your world is just feeling so constricted. It just feels like everything feels close. There's no room to breathe. There's no room. It just feels overwhelming. And that's why Allah says in that verse, وَمَنْ أَعْرَضَ عَنْ ذِكْرِي, and whoever turns away from the remembrance of God, فَإِنَّ لَهُ مَعِيشَةً ضَنْكًا. Indeed, for him is a depressed life. One of the meaning of remembrance here is referring to the Quran and what it teaches and instructs mankind to do, as we believe as Muslims that God is the all-knowing and seeing, and because of this and more, his guidance is going to be the best of guidance, as it's built off of his divine insight and wisdom. He instructs us how to behave in certain situations through the Quran and his prophets. So when we are faced with hardships or calamities within our lifetime, God says in the Quran, chapter 2, verse 45, he says, "Wasta'inu bi-sabri was-salah," and that means that he instructs us to seek help, his help, with patience and prayers. And that's what this is what this verse means. "Wasta'inu bi-sabri was-salah," to seek his aid, his assistance with patience and prayers, and for us to be consistent in doing so. Meaning we turn to him and him alone and ask for his help with patience and prayer. And God also says in the Quran, chapter 2, verse 155 to 157, he says, and I'm going to say this in English just purely for the sake of time. He says, "Be sure we shall test you with something of fear and hunger, some lost in goods, lives, and the fruits of your toil. But give glad tidings to those who patiently persevere, those who say, when afflicted with a calamity, to God we belong, and to him is our return. They are those on whom descend blessings from their Lord and mercy, and they are the ones who receive guidance." So, as you can see, that Muslims have a very unique way on how we view the world. We see calamities and also blessings as a test from God. So while enduring hardships, tough times, especially like what the world is currently facing, we must patiently persevere and seek God's help with patience and prayer. All the while doing all what we can humanly possibly do to remove the hardships of life off our own necks, and wait for his aid and have trust that it will come, and that everything happens for a reason which is in accordance to his divine wisdom. Also, we believe in an afterlife, and that is where our true home is, a home of true bliss, a home of true security and peace. So that's why you will never see a true Muslim panicking, especially in this global pandemic. And remember, I said a true Muslim. So this is where I get my power from, through cementing a good understanding of how God works and forging an unbreakable relationship with him.